So end of the year math test, these are your notes. I'm just gonna call it end of year review. Okay, all right. So in the 30 questions that exist on here, we're gonna try to get through as many. The ones that I feel like we don't have to kind of review, we're gonna skip over because we just have today and tomorrow, okay? But the first problem that you're gonna see on your end of the year math test is gonna take us all the way back to chapter 1, where in chapter 1, we learned how to multiply a large number by a base 10 with an exponent, okay? So let me tell you what I mean. So it would be an example of a problem like 843,000 times 10 to the second power, okay? So how do you solve that? Now you gotta go, this is where I know you've retained information. Retain means it's in your long-term memory, you know how to do it, you haven't forgotten it just because you haven't been using it, that you truly learned this when we did this chapter. Great.
So you first look at the numbers that aren't zeros, and you multiply those, which would be 843 times 1,
Perfect.
and you would get 843. And then you would look at the exponent, which is 2, and you would do 22. You would add 5 zeros because the 3 on the 843,000 and the 2 back.
Good, Brady. Now, I accidentally just threw my comma in there and I shouldn't have
And you
yet.
add 3, and you add a comma every 3 spaces.
Beautiful. So that would be my answer. Okay, nice work, Brady. All the way back to chapter 1, we called that and he gave it to me exactly how I taught it. That's beautiful stuff. Okay, how many of you, once he started saying that, it started coming back to you?
I knew
Okay, all right. So you need to review that because there might be a couple of problems that have you do that. Don't forget how to multiply large numbers by base 10 with exponents. Okay? All right. Number 2. Okay? Number 2 is talking about putting decimals in order. Okay? So we're going to call this one ordering decimals. Not sure what chapter that fell in, but you're gonna see 3, 4 numbers for this example. We're just gonna do 3, okay? So our examples are gonna be something like 2.96, 6.92, 29.6. Actually, I lied, I'm gonna do one more. And 296.0, okay? All right, so there's your 4 numbers. Now, the directions are going to tell you how they want you to order them. It might say order them from the least to the greatest, or it might say order them from the greatest to the least. I think this was in chapter 2. Pretty sure this was in chapter 2.
They're already.
So, how do we order these if we're going to put them in order from the greatest to the least? So, Cassidy, tell us what it would look like.
You look at the first number first, and you look at the 2, 6, 2, and another 2.
Okay, so in case you all aren't hearing what she's saying, to compare decimals, you got to start with the largest places, which is the whole number. So she said you're going to compare all the numbers that are in whole number land, and you're going to compare those first. You're not even going to pay attention to the stuff in decimal land. It doesn't matter. The whole numbers matter first. So Cassidy, which one would be the greatest in this situation?
296.
Yeah, 296 would be the greatest. What would be the next greatest? 29.6 would be the next greatest. Next one?
And then
6.92. So then the smallest number is 2.96.
It was already in order.
In reverse.
Greatest.
Yeah. Okay, that's ordering things. All right, how's that one feel? Okay, we're moving pretty quickly here just because we have to, okay? Example number 3. This is dividing, So dividing whole numbers.
Easy.
We're not doing an example of that? okay?
No, I have like.
We're not even gonna do one of those. That one's gonna feel so simple because you've been working so hard on dividing decimals here lately that dividing whole numbers is gonna seem like a piece of cake as long as you don't forget the order, okay? Remember, the order is, does McDonald's serve burgers daily? Now, I'll tell you a place where I see a lot of kiddos have a problem is when they start dividing stuff and they bring down a number. Sometimes when they bring down a number, they don't have enough to divide again. And so they think they get to bring down another number. So my advice to you is, does the little saying say, does McDonald's serve burgers daily, burgers daily? No. You don't just get to keep bringing down digits until you have enough. You gotta stick with that order. So if you bring down a number and you don't have enough, then it's time to divide again. So what would you put on your roof to show you don't have enough, Rory? A 0, okay? We've learned this, we're not going through it again, but hopefully you don't forget that and make that error when you start solving this stuff, okay? Problem number 4. This is dividing fractions.
That was that easy class.
This should be right here in your memory. Now, this test is not necessarily going in order of how we learn things. Things are going to jump around, okay? It's just to make sure that if I mix stuff up, you can still remember how to do it, all right? So dividing fractions. So we'll do an example, one of those, just to make sure, okay? So the example of a dividing fractions, let's just say we are looking at 2/8 divided by 12/16. What do you have to remember with dividing fractions, Tessa? You gotta remember to keep, change, flip. That's critical in solving that. Okay? So when we solve this thing, we're moving fast. Hopefully you're in the process of trying to solve. Now here's the part that some of you, I got a little disappointed in when I graded some tests yesterday, is because some of you forgot the flip part, which you can do that. Okay. The other thing that some of you remembered to flip, and then you got to this step here and you forgot to do what next? Simplify. So you were playing with big numbers and you were multiplying big numbers and then you were dividing big numbers. If they give you the opportunity to get rid of the big numbers, get rid of the big numbers, okay? So when I simplify here, what does 2 become? 12 becomes 6. When I simplify here, what does 8 become? What does 16 become? When you simplify straight across, you get 2/6, which then simplifies everybody to
1/6.
1/3.
Sorry, what?
Okay, there we go.
Oh, wait.
All right. How many of you right now feel like you can nail the first 4? Okay, I love it. Beautiful. Okay, let's check out number 5. Okay, number 5. Multiplying decimals. We're not doing an example of that one. That one we literally just finished up learning how to do, kind of like we literally just finished up learning how to do problem number 4. So you have the notes right there ready for you to remind you of how to multiply decimals, okay? Now, I will tell you, some of you put decimals in the wrong location. You don't move the decimal to the end with multiplication. You only move the decimal to the end if you're dividing decimals. But when you're multiplying decimals, what do you have to remember to do at the end? Yes?
So you say, I don't know, make random fractions.
Okay, I'm listening to you, go.
So maybe just, I don't know, 6.3 and 4.2.
Okay, so he's coming up with, he said 6.3 times 4.2?
Yeah.
Okay?
So then you just take the decimals out, but you would leave that, so you would rewrite it,
Uh-huh.
and then you would just do 63 times 22.
Good. And when you came up with your answer, which
Two
you
times-
solved it, you want to solve it? 2 times 3 is?
2 times 3 is 6.
Good.
2 times 6 is 12.
Good. 0 placeholder.
4 times 3 is 12.
Good.
4 times 6 is 20. 25.
Good. Plus 1 is 25. So we add all this stuff together. Here's what we end with.
And then-
Now, the kicker is pay attention here, pay attention here, pay attention here. Where does the decimal go? Connor Lettieri, where does the decimal go?
Between 6 and 4.
Why?
Because there's one number before the decimal, or you have to count how much numbers are before the decimal and how those.
Not before the decimal, after the decimal. You gotta count how many digits sit after the decimal in the problem. Okay, so in this example, how many sit after the decimal? 2. So in the answer, there needs to sit 2 digits after the decimal. So you were right, because in this example, the numbers before and the numbers after both are the same. But if you pay attention to how many are after, not in front. So, okay, all right, that's number 5. So look, we're supposed to have religion, but I'm gonna take you 10 more minutes so you start late because it's not period, okay? So at 10:30, we're gonna stop and we'll shift into religion, all right?
Are you
So-
gonna watch it?
Yes, so let's move into problem number 6. I haven't done too much with you in math yet, so you can survive a few more minutes.
Your math class actually lasts within 35 on the schedule.
Oh, it does? No wonder, it felt like it was zooming by.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let me get rid of some of this because I'm gonna use this with my other classes, and so I don't wanna have all the answers
Take all
exposed.
the time you need.
No. Okay, hang on, one more thing to get. That's all right. I'll give them a new one because I literally wrote that one in order. You all picked up on that. Okay, all right, now let's move on to number 6. All right, number 6. So what is number 6 on this paper asking you to do? Add decimals. We multiply decimals, but now we have to remember how to add them. Now, I know you all say that this sounds crazy, but you know, Miss Coley tells me every single year, so when you're an 8th grader, you take something called an acuity test. Now, an acuity test is the test, a math test, it's just got math on it, that tests your readiness for math for high school. And so those high school teachers, those schools, get that score. And the high school decides, using that score, what math test you're ready to take as a freshman in high school. Okay, now this seems like a really far ways away from you all, but it's not.
It's not.
Okay, you know, 5th grade felt like it probably lasted kind of long, but on some levels it felt like it flew by too, you know? So 6th grade was probably fly by, and then 7th grade, before you know it, you're an 8th grader and you're going to take the acuity test. Okay, so what does the acuity test test? It tests your skills for math, and guess what? Our 8th graders every single year when they take it, score low on adding decimals. Right now, you're giggling about that, but that's a fact. Why do you think they score low in something that's so stinking simple? Yes, Dominic?
Because they forgot it.
They forgot it. They haven't done that in so long. You spend time up there in junior high learning how to do some serious tough math. So when you go down to the basics, you forgot how to do the basics. And when you get ready to head into high school, you've got to remember how to do the hard stuff and the easy stuff. You can't let the easy stuff slip your mind. Okay? So adding decimals, what's the thing that's important, Max? What do we have to remember? Yes, so for this one, you've got to remember to line up your decimals. Now, that's different than number 5. For number 5, did we have to line up our decimals? No, you didn't. You could just take them away, multiply, and then throw it back in your answer. But for number 6, you gotta remember to line that up. And if you don't, will you get the right answer?
No.
No. So since we haven't seen this in a long time, let's look at an example of this one, okay? Here we go. Let's try 27.6 plus 8.792.
This is here. Talk about zeros.
You can. It's adding though. Remember with adding, you don't have to
Oh,
always add the zeros. But I always say do it anyways. It just keeps you from making mistakes. So if we line this thing up, guys, then what we would do is put the large number on top. So the large number is actually listed first. Will the large number always be listed first? No, it actually won't. So be careful with that. But in this example, 27 is larger than 8. That's why you had to know how to compare decimals. Because you got to be able to look at two numbers and figure out which one's bigger. And then once you know which one's bigger, now you can set them up to work the problem. So 27.6 would go at the top, but if I have to line things up, where's the 8 gonna go? Yes, Allie.
So make the two decimals lined up.
Okay, so tell me, where would I put this 8? Under which digit?
Below the 7.
Yes, my 8's gonna go below my 7, so now my decimal's lined up. So then the 7 over here is gonna go where?
Under the 6.
Good. The 9's gonna go?
Right next to the 7.
Good. You're singing, quit singing.
And then the 2's gonna go right next to the.
Good. So when you set this thing up, it looks kind of bizarre, right? Because there's places where there's no numbers. So if we were subtracting, we have to add what? Good. Now, because it's addition, do we really have to? We really don't have to with addition. Because it's not gonna change anything. Remember, like the addition property of 0, the 0 property of addition tells us that any number plus a 0 is always the other number. But that's not the same thing when you set it up in certain orders with subtraction. Changes things, okay? So if you wanna put zeros here, you can, just so that it doesn't look so weird. You don't have to. Okay, let me let Allie finish this one. So Allie, finish it up. So if we added here, we would have
2,
then,
9,
then,
13,
good, then,
16,
then,
and then 3.
and then our decimal just falls right in line in the answer.
We have 30 seconds.
I was doing some
Now, places where mistakes can happen on simple stuff like this, you forget to line things up, that's place number 1. But also place number 2 is you get to, your brain is so programmed right now with doing multiplication and division, that when you sit here and look at numbers, some people accidentally will multiply 6 and 7 instead of add them.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Done that many times.
Right. So this is where you just have to kind of like slow your motor down a little bit and make sure you don't make those mistakes. All right, any questions on the first 6? Okay, I still have time because my class actually on Thursday, I forgot about that, it goes till 10:35. So let's carry on, okay? We're gonna go to 10:35, we don't have much left. Number 7, problem number 7, let me get a new page. Okay, so problem number 7 asks you to, it's a dividing decimals.
Can I help with it?
Yeah.
I got it wrong.
Okay, this one's fresh in our brain also. Okay. So, for those of you who used that notebook yesterday to help you with your test, you won't have access to that notebook on this thing. So you really need to make sure that you remember how to divide decimals. So there were steps for dividing decimals that I gave you. So remember what those steps are. If this is the problem that we are staring at, if the problem is, let's say it's 0.78 divided by 5.247. I just made this up, so this is probably going to be a problem that's going to not be fun to solve because it's probably going to keep on going. But how would we first set this up? And this is what some of you goofed up on your test yesterday. Some of you came, not necessarily maybe in here, but maybe in another room, had people coming up to me and they're like, Miss Warren, which one goes in the box? And I was like, oh, because they should know this if they're listening in class, right, everybody?
Yes.
So, Sophia, tell me, what goes in the box?
The first number listed.
Yeah, first number listed. So even though it looks weird to put 0.78 in the box, it's where it goes. Okay? So that outside number in the box, we're gonna erase that and make it much smaller. Okay? Let's do this. Let's make it 5.2. So on the outside of the box now goes 5.2. Okay? Sorry, I'm simplifying this problem. All right. So the first thing we had to do is get everything where it needed to go. So we've done that. Now, Sophia, what's the next thing we do?
Okay, so what you do is you are on like 5.2, move the decimal to add a really two.
Yeah, this is where you move the decimal. And some of you all moved up on this. This is where you move the decimal. Okay? Don't move the decimal when you multiply. Move the decimal when you divide. All right? So, as Sophia is now telling us, we have to move it to the end. So in this example, it would go to behind the 2, and then what would we do inside?
Inside the box, the decimal with 1, so after the 7.
Good. Please stop singing. Shh. So we would move it to that same location, okay? So my suggestion has always been, so that you don't accidentally put it in the wrong place, don't erase anything, just go ahead and now over here to the side, reset up the problem. So you now have a 52 on the outside, and inside you have a 7.8. Okay? Does it?
Yeah.
No way. All right. Who knew? Okay, so now what would we do next, Sophia?
So then what you do is you try to see if the fusion is what you can't see.
Well, not yet. First, what we need to do is something else. So
Okay, yeah. Move your decimal.
yeah, get that decimal on the roof before you start doing anything with numbers. Because if you wait and try to do it at the end, you may lose your spot. Okay? All right, so as you were saying, 52, will it fit into 78?
No, so they can see if they can do 78, which it can't, but it can go with 1. So you put the 1 after the 8.
Okay, so the 1 goes on top of the 8, bring down your 52. When you subtract, you are left with what?
26.
26. I've got stuff left over, so what do I have to add?
You add a 0.
Good.
And what you call 260.
So how many 52s will fit into 260?
Let's see, I'm gonna use my pound. So I make that 300. Make that 50. Yeah. So it would go into 60 now.
Not 6, that'd be too much. Yeah.
4, 5.
Yeah, I think it'll go in 5 times, am I right? Yeah, it'll go in 5 times. So when I put my 5 up there, 5 times 52 is actually exactly 260. Today I was a human calculator and did that without even knowing. So that was pretty cool. Okay. So
And you changed it.
I know. So our final answer is 0.15. Now, I saw many of you who did the hard stuff right. You did all of the hard division correct. But then in the final step where you put your answer, instead of saying your answer was like 0.15, you said your answer was 1.5. And that's when I then had to circle the decimal and draw an arrow and then draw a decimal, and then I had to put -1/2 because you had your decimal in the wrong location.
It's because they're trying to do it
Yeah.
after.
I think you're right, Brennan. I do think that's what it is. I think they're forgetting to put the decimal on the roof first. They're trying to do it at the end, and then they don't know where it goes. Okay, so that's question number 7. How's that one feel? Okay. All right, let's get rid of this.
You're out of time.
I'm out of time.
By a minute. By
All right, so if there's 30 questions, which there are on this test, I've only shown you 7. Okay, so that means,
Wait, I thought they were categories. I thought all of these had like multiple questions.
no, so this is what the test looks like, okay? So the front page has 8 questions, we almost made it to page number 1. Okay, then it goes to the back page has 8 more, okay? And as you can see by just looking at this thing, it's kind of got some on it, you're like, well, I don't know what that is. Then we go to page 3, and we see on page 3, and for some reason, there's some stuff down here, they must have used recyclable paper to make my desk, so there's some weird stuff down here, it doesn't matter. It's like nothing, so just ignore it, it's just. But on this page here, this leads us to 26. And then on the very back, you have your final 4. Okay? So tomorrow, we will try to get through as many more as we can so that you are ready on Monday. Okay? So if I'm giving you 2 days to do it, let's shoot for 15 problems a day.
That's good. I can
Okay.
read it 6
Right.
I could probably get like 25.
But I don't want you to rush because this is pretty important. Okay, so, all right, so we'll save this, we'll come back to it. Okay, let me stop our videoing.